The Zirith Empire stretched across dozens of galaxies, each one bowing to their will before a single shot was fired. Entire star systems surrendered at the mere mention of their name. Their fleets, massive and gleaming, moved like living storms through the void, obliterating resistance without effort. To the Zirith, conquest was routine. It was as natural as breathing. In the heart of the Empire, the capital planet of Ziffer sparkled with energy grids and towering spires. The Zirith High Council convened in the Grand Spire, a structure so vast that it seemed to pierce the atmosphere itself. From this chamber, the Council directed wars and dictated the fates of countless worlds. The Zirith were certain of one thing: nothing could stop them. Nothing. Not even the most ambitious species could hope to challenge their dominance. Admiral Clith, one of the Council's most respected leaders, studied the galactic map displayed before him. Lines of conquest traced across sectors, each ending in a planet already subdued. "Another galaxy falls today," he said, his voice like gravel, yet carrying authority. "The inhabitants will learn quickly that resistance is meaningless." "Meaningless," echoed the Council members in unison, their three voices blending in a strange harmony. For the Zirith, unity of thought was a strength, one that allowed them to coordinate millions of ships across countless light years. Outside the Grand Spire, the fleets of the Zirith glinted against the dark canvas of space. Each warship was a fortress, armed with energy cannons capable of vaporizing entire cities. Entire civilizations had crumbled under these weapons without the aliens ever boarding a single planet. Their conquests were swift, efficient, and final, yet for all their power, the Zirith were not cruel. They did not enslave every species they defeated. Instead, they absorbed civilizations into their empire, demanding loyalty and tribute. In return, they allowed local leaders to govern, as long as they obeyed Zirith law. Clith believed this method worked perfectly. Why waste energy fighting when you could bend others to your will with the promise of survival? As Clith examined the latest intelligence reports, a small alert flashed on the holographic map. "Unidentified vessel entering Sector 7G, reported a subordinate. "It is moving at sublight speed but shows no identification." Clith raised an eyebrow. "Sublight? That is primitive. Do we know its origin?" "No, Admiral. No known species matches this technology." The Council chuckled softly. "Perhaps it is a stray freighter," one member suggested, "or an explorer who strayed too far." Clith dismissed the concern. "We have no time for curiosity. Focus on the sectors that matter. This, whatever it is, cannot threaten us. Notify the patrols, but do not divert the fleets. It will be gone soon enough." The Zirith's arrogance was palpable. Every species they had ever encountered had either submitted or been destroyed. To them, a single ship from an unknown species was not even worth a thought. Meanwhile, many light years away, the small human warship USS Resolute cruised silently through the void. Unlike the Zirith, humans were not built for intimidation. Their ships were smaller, their weapons weaker, and their fleets nowhere near the scale of the alien empire. But humans had something else: ingenuity. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes scanning the view screen as distant stars streaked past. Her crew moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting shields, monitoring engines, and running simulations of potential encounters. Every human aboard knew the stakes. One wrong move could mean annihilation. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rami, the ship's science officer, "sensors indicate a massive fleet ahead. Unknown classification. Estimated strength far exceeds ours." Elena studied the readings, her expression calm. "How far?" she asked. "Approximately 3 million kilometers, approaching sublight orbit around the nearest planet," Rami replied. The captain nodded. "Keep our course steady. Begin passive scans. We don't want to announce our presence just yet." Humans, despite being smaller and less advanced than the Zirith in terms of raw firepower, had learned that survival depended on strategy and creativity. The Resolute was designed not to overwhelm, but to outthink its enemies, to use intelligence as a weapon. On Ziffer, the Zirith Council continued their discussions. Oblivious to the tiny human vessel closing in on their borders, they debated the logistics of integrating newly conquered worlds, the allocation of resources for the next galaxy, and the projected timeline for their next campaign. "Another galaxy will submit by the cycle's end," Clith stated, his eyes glowing with satisfaction. "No species can resist the Zirith forever." Yet even as he spoke, the human ship edged closer, a silent shadow against the brilliance of distant stars. Its hull was small, almost fragile by Zereth standards, but it moved with precision and intent. Back on the Resolute, Elena activated the long-range sensors. "Scan every frequency," she commanded. "We need to understand what we're facing." The readings came back almost immediately. "Captain," said Rami, "this fleet, it's unlike anything in our database. Massive energy signatures, advanced weapons, coordinated maneuvers beyond anything human engineering has seen." Elena's lips curved into a small, confident smile. "Good. That means they rely on patterns. And patterns can be broken." For the first time in the history of their encounters, the Zereth would meet an enemy who did not fear them, an enemy who would not submit at the first sign of power. As the human warship closed the distance, its crew prepared for the first contact with the most dominant species in the known universe. They knew the odds were against them, yet they were determined. Humans were rarely the strongest, rarely the fastest, rarely the largest. But they had one advantage that no alien empire could predict: creativity, courage, and an unyielding will to survive. High above Scifi, the Zereth fleet adjusted its patrol formations, still unaware of the tiny vessel threading through the vast emptiness of space. To them, the galaxy belonged to the Zereth. Resistance was an illusion. And yet, in the silent corridors of the Resolute, human crew members prepared to challenge that illusion. Captain Elena Voss stood at the bridge, hands clasped behind her back, staring at the approaching stars. "We may be small," she said softly, "but we are not powerless. We will show them what humanity can do." In that moment, across millions of kilometers, two forces edged closer, one confident in its perfection, the other small but undaunted. The Zereth believed conquest was effortless. The humans believed that cleverness, courage, and determination could defy even the greatest power in the universe. And soon, their beliefs would collide. The first sparks of a conflict that would shake entire galaxies were ready to ignite. The human warship USS Resolute glided silently through the darkness of space. Its engines burned softly, leaving no trace for the massive Zereth fleets to notice. To an outside observer, it was nothing more than a fragile machine drifting among the stars. But inside that ship, minds were working with sharp focus, preparing for a challenge unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Captain Elena Voss stood on the command deck, her dark uniform neat, her posture strong. She was not a woman of many words, but every order she gave carried weight. Around her, the bridge crew worked at their stations. Fingers tapped on glowing consoles, eyes scanned data streams, and every sound was purposeful. There was no fear here, only quiet determination. Lieutenant Rami, the science officer, was the first to speak. "Captain, our scans are complete. The enemy fleet numbers in the thousands. Their energy output is beyond anything we have seen. These ships, they are giants compared to us." Elena looked at the display. The Zereth warships stretched across the map like a wall of steel and firepower. Each one dwarfed the Resolute, their glowing cannons pulsing with destructive energy. To face even one of them in battle would be suicide. To face thousands was madness. "Giants fall," Elena replied calmly. "They always fall if you know where to strike." At that commander hail, the first officer gave a sharp nod. "We're used to being the underdogs. This isn't the first time humanity has faced impossible odds. We'll make it work." The crew believed her. They always did. Humanity's history was built on surviving against the odds, storms, wars, and endless challenges. This was just another trial, larger than the rest, but not impossible. Inside the alien empire far away, Admiral Clith of the Zereth continued his daily routine. To him, life was simple. Expand the empire, secure resources, demand loyalty, and move on. His fleets were perfect, his warriors disciplined, his technology unmatched. Resistance had long ago stopped being interesting. It was merely a temporary obstacle. When his scouts sent word of a small human vessel, Clith barely paid attention. "A stray ship," he declared. "Erase it or capture it. It makes no difference." But deep within the empire, some voices were less certain. A few junior strategists noticed that this unidentified vessel had avoided patrols with surprising skill. "Perhaps," one whispered, "this ship is more than it seems." The idea was dismissed quickly. No small species could trouble the Zereth. They dominated galaxies effortlessly. The Council saw no reason to fear. A small crew with big ideas back aboard the Resolute, Elena gathered her senior officers in the war room. A round table displayed a rotating holographic image of the Zereth fleet. The glowing ships filled the chamber like a storm of light. "We cannot fight them head-on," Elena said, her voice steady. "That is obvious, but we do not need to. Our mission is not destruction, it is disruption. If we can find their weakness, we can break their illusion of invincibility." Lieutenant Rami leaned forward. "Captain, I believe I have found something. Their fleet coordination is too perfect. Every ship moves in harmony like a single mind. It is impressive, but also dangerous for them. If they rely too much on centralized command, disrupting it could cause chaos." Commander Hale frowned. "So cut the head and the body stumbles?" "Exactly," Rami replied. "Their advantage becomes their weakness. They are predictable. If we can find their command hub, we may be able to interfere with it." The captain thought in silence for a moment, then spoke. "We will test this. A small move first, something that seems insignificant. If they stumble, we know where to press harder." The plan was risky, but humans had always thrived on risk. First encounter hours later, the Resolute drifted closer to a small Zereth patrol group, guarding the edge of the fleet. 3 massive ships, each the size of a city, floated in perfect formation. Their energy shields pulsed and their cannons glowed like sleeping dragons. Elena gave her order quietly. "Activate stealth systems. Approach slowly. Prepare an electromagnetic pulse." The Resolute crept forward, invisible to most scans. When it was close enough, the crew unleashed a focused pulse of energy. It struck the nearest Zyreth vessel like a ripple across still water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien ship's formation broke. Its engines flickered, its weapons dimmed, and it drifted slightly out of position. The other 2 ships responded instantly, adjusting their own movements to cover the gap. But in that instant of confusion, Elena smiled. "There," she said. "They are not machines. They are chained together by a system. Break the chain and they falter." The Resolute withdrew before the aliens could react. The humans had drawn first blood, not in destruction but in knowledge. Alien confusion on Zephyr. Admiral Clith received the report with disbelief. "A single vessel caused this?" he demanded. "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied nervously. "The patrol ship lost formation for several moments. The intruder vanished before we could track it." Clith slammed his clawed hand against the console. "Impossible! No lesser species has ever done this. Find them, crush them. I want that ship turned to dust," the council muttered uneasily. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had felt a tiny fracture in its armor. Human determination back on the Resolute. The crew celebrated quietly. They had survived first contact, and more importantly, they had proven that the enemy was not flawless. "Captain," said Rami, excitement in his voice, "if we can target their central hub, we could cause wide-scale disruption. Imagine an entire fleet stumbling at once," Elena nodded. "Then that is our next move. But we must be careful. If they realize what we're doing, they will hunt us with everything they have." Commander Hale crossed his arms. "Let them hunt. We've been the hunted before. Humanity doesn't give up. We'll make them regret underestimating us." The crew's spirits rose. They were a single ship against a galactic empire, yet their courage burned brighter than fear. Rising tension as days passed, the Resolute continued to shadow the Zereth fleet. Sometimes it struck quickly, knocking a single ship off course. Other times it simply observed, learning, recording patterns, waiting for the perfect opportunity. The aliens grew restless. Patrols doubled, scanners swept wider, and Admiral Clith's temper burned hotter each day. "They are insects," he growled. "Why can't we swat them?" But insects, as the Admiral would soon learn, could sting in unexpected ways. A symbol of hope far beyond the Empire. In small colonies and hidden outposts, whispers began to spread. Rumors of a human warship defying the Zereth carried through secret channels. Species who had long since given up hope of freedom began to wonder. Could it be true? Could the mighty conquerors be challenged? The name Resolute began to carry weight even among those who had never seen the ship. It became a spark, a small flame in the cold void of despair. Closing of Part 2 on the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Elena Voss stood tall, watching the stars. Her crew worked around her, tired but determined. The galaxy outside was vast and dangerous, but humanity had always thrived in danger. "They think they are untouchable," Elena said softly, "but we will show them. No empire lasts forever, not when humanity stands against it. And so the stage was set. The Zereth Empire, confident in its perfect dominance, was beginning to feel unease. And humanity, small and underestimated, was preparing to strike harder. The storm was coming. The Zereth Empire had never been challenged before. Entire galaxies had fallen like leaves before the storm of their fleets. Yet now, whispers traveled across their command networks. A single human ship, small, fragile, almost laughable, was daring to play tricks on them. Admiral Clith felt the pressure building. Reports of disrupted patrols and momentary fleet stumbles reached him daily. He could not tolerate it. No insect humiliates the Zereth, he growled in the grand spire, his voice echoing through the chamber. If one ship thinks it can dance in our shadow, then we will crush it with the weight of our empire. His words were strong, but beneath them was a seed of unease. For the first time in his career, Clith faced something he did not understand. The human plan aboard the USS Resolute, Captain Elena Voss and her crew were preparing for the next step. They had seen the enemy stumble. Now they would push harder. In the war room, the glowing hologram of the Zereth fleet rotated slowly. It was an ocean of firepower, thousands of ships locked in perfect harmony. Elena pointed at the center. This is their command hub. All communication flows through it. If we can strike here, even a small disruption will ripple across their fleet. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to make them lose control. Lieutenant Rami adjusted the projection. The hub is heavily protected. Dozens of escorts, overlapping shields, continuous scans. A direct attack would fail instantly, but if we can draw their attention away, even for a few moments, we might slip close enough to deliver an electromagnetic charge. Commander Hale folded his arms. A decoy, then. Risky. But risk is all we've got. The captain nodded. Prepare the ship. Tomorrow we test their strength. The crew dispersed, each person readying their stations. Engineers fine-tuned engines for sharp maneuvers. Weapons officers checked torpedoes, adjusting their energy signatures to mimic larger blasts. Even the youngest crew members worked with grim focus. They knew what was at stake. The calm before the storm. The night before the mission, the ship was quiet. Some crew members sat in the mess hall sharing quiet words. Others wrote messages, stored to be sent back to Earth if they survived. On the observation deck, the stars glimmered endlessly, silent witnesses to the coming battle. Elena walked the deck slowly, speaking to her people. She offered no speeches, only steady words of encouragement. We stand together, she told them. No matter what happens, we stand as one. Her calm confidence steadied hearts. Fear turned into determination. Contact. The next cycle, the Resolute approached the Zereth fleet. The alien warships glittered like a wall of steel and fire across the void. The command hub loomed in the center, a massive station pulsing with energy, its shields shimmering like an unbreakable shell. Elena stood on the bridge. Begin the decoy. Fire torpedoes at the left flank. The Resolute launched a spread of torpedoes, their energy signatures magnified to appear like heavy missiles. They streaked toward the nearest group of Zereth ships. Explosions blossomed as the torpedoes detonated just short of the hulls, shaking shields but doing no damage. Still, the effect was immediate. The Zereth patrol scrambled. Unknown vessel detected. Voices cried across their networks. Engaging intruder. Dozens of alien ships broke formation, racing toward the source of the attack. Exactly as Elena had planned. Full speed ahead, she ordered. Take us through the gap. The Resolute darted forward, slipping through the chaos like a fish through cracks in a net. Its small size, once a weakness, now became its greatest strength. The clash begins, but the Zereth were not fools. Their sensors quickly recalibrated, locking onto the human vessel. Sirens blared across the alien fleet as cannons charged. Beams of energy cut through space, chasing the fleeing Resolute. Evasive maneuvers, Hale barked. The ship twisted sharply, rolling through the void. Bright streams of plasma missed by meters, lighting the bridge in flashes of blue and white. The crew held their breath, gripping their consoles. Shields holding at 70%, cried Ensign Patel. Keep moving, Elena commanded. Do not give them a clean shot. The Resolute weaved between blasts, returning fire with quick bursts from its rail cannons. The human weapons were smaller but precise. Shots rang out, striking weak points on the alien escorts. One Zereth fighter exploded into fragments. Another spun out of control. The bridge crew erupted in brief cheers. For the first time in history, Xerath ships had fallen to humans. But the celebration was cut short. "More ships incoming," Rami shouted. Dozens, no hundreds, the view screen filled with enemy signatures swarming toward them like a tidal wave. Against the storm, the Resolute dived toward the command hub, weaving between alien formations. Its torpedoes fired in bursts, scattering enemy lines. Electromagnetic pulses crackled from its launchers, briefly blinding scanners. For every shot fired, the aliens returned with 10. The ship shook under the assault. Panels sparked, alarms wailed, and smoke filled the bridge. "Damage to Deck 3, Hale reported. "Hull breaches sealed, but shields at 40%. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay on course. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to break their pride." Her words pushed them forward. The Resolute danced between giants, surviving where no ship should survive. The human strike. At last. The command hub loomed ahead, its shields glowing like a star. Dozens of escorts circled it, weapons primed. "Prepare the charge," Elena ordered. Rami's hands flew across the console. Electromagnetic pulse ready. It must be delivered within 5 kilometers to penetrate their defenses. The ship closed in, enemy fire hammering against its hull. Each impact shook the crew, but they held steady. "Now," Elena shouted. A brilliant wave of energy erupted from the Resolute, washing over the hub. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the alien station flickered. Its lights dimmed, its shields faltered, and its escorts stumbled out of formation. The ripple spread across the fleet. Ships turned awkwardly, some colliding, others drifting helplessly. The perfect harmony of the Xerath shattered into confusion. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew erupted into cheers. "It worked," Rami shouted, his face glowing with excitement. "Their entire network is disrupted." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Now we run." Alien fury on Scifi. Admiral Clith rose in fury as the reports arrived. "One ship has done this," he roared. "Yes, Admiral," the officer stammered. "Our fleets are stumbling. Coordination is lost. The intruder, find them!" Clith bellowed. "Find them and tear them apart." No insect humiliates the Xerath, but even as his rage grew, he felt something colder beneath it. Fear. For centuries, the Xerath had been flawless. Now that illusion was broken. Retreat. The Resolute sped away from the chaos, engines burning at full power. Enemy ships pursued, but the disruption slowed their response. Beams of energy streaked past, some grazing the hull, but the human ship pushed through. On the bridge, alarms still blared, but spirits were high. "We did it," Hale said, unable to hide his grin. "We struck the giants." Elena's eyes were steady. "Do not celebrate too soon. They will come for us with everything they have." This was only the beginning. The echo of hope across the galaxy. Hidden channels carried the news. The mighty Xerath had stumbled. The unbeatable empire had been shaken by a single human warship. On distant colonies, enslaved peoples whispered the name Resolute. In the dark corners of space, rebels and dreamers began to believe once more. Humanity had lit a spark, and sparks could grow into flames. Closing of Part 3As, the Resolute disappeared into the stars, chased but unbeaten. Elena looked out at the endless void. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with determination. "They think they are gods," she whispered, "but they bleed like anyone else. And we will show them." The first clash was over. The war was only beginning. The galaxy was restless. For centuries, the Xerath had ruled without question. Their fleets crushed opposition. Their authority stretched across countless worlds, and their name alone was enough to silence resistance. Yet now something had changed. A whisper traveled across the stars. A single human ship had broken the perfect harmony of the Empire. A single vessel had faced the unstoppable and lived. The Xerath Empire trembled, not with defeat, but with something they had not felt in ages: doubt. The Admiral's anger, Admiral Clith, stood in the grand spire on Scifi, the capital of the Empire. His eyes blazed as he read the reports. His fleets, once flawless in their movements, had stumbled like children. The command hub had faltered. Discipline had cracked, all because of one ship. "This is unacceptable," Clith thundered. His voice filled the council chamber. "One fragile vessel humiliates us in front of the galaxy. If we do not crush them, others will follow their example." The council murmured with unease. They were used to hearing victory reports, not excuses. "Admiral," one counselor asked. Why does this ship matter? It is one vessel against thousands. Why waste energy on such a small threat? Clith's claws clenched against the table. Because weakness spreads. If we allow one flame to burn, it will ignite rebellion across the stars. We must stamp it out before it grows. The council agreed reluctantly. Orders were given. Every patrol in the sector would hunt for the human warship. No resource was to be spared. The insect would be crushed. The human resolve, meanwhile, aboard the USS Resolute, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage from their daring strike. Sparks were still being cleared from corridors. Hull plates were being welded, and engineers worked with sweat on their brows. Yet their spirits were not broken. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge watching her crew with quiet pride. They had faced giants and survived, but she knew the enemy would not remain shaken for long. The Zirith would come back harder, stronger, more determined. We've bought time, Elena said, turning to Commander Hale. But time is not victory. We need more than survival. We need to spread this fire, Hale frowned. You mean contact the other species? Inspire them to rise? Yes, Elena replied firmly. The Zirith are powerful because their enemies are divided. If others see that they can be beaten even a little, they may join us. Together we can turn a spark into a storm. Rami, the science officer, looked up from his console. I've already intercepted communications from rebel cells. Small groups, scattered across different systems. They've heard of us. They're waiting for a sign. Elena nodded. Then we will give them one. The First Alliance. The Resolute moved carefully through hidden routes, avoiding patrols while sending encrypted messages. Days passed in tension as they searched for allies. Finally, in a quiet asteroid belt, they found their first answer. A fleet of small ships emerged from hiding. They were battered, old and patched together, but they carried the banners of a dozen species once conquered by the Zirith. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew watched the ragtag fleet with amazement. They came, Hale said softly. A voice crackled over the comms. Human vessel, this is Commander Thal of the Velan Resistance. We have heard of your defiance. We did not believe it at first, but seeing you here, we believe now. We are ready to fight if you lead us. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady. We do not ask for blind loyalty. We ask for courage. Stand with us and we will show the galaxy that the Zirith are not gods. They can be challenged. They can be defeated. The resistance ships cheered in response. The First Alliance had been forged. The Zirith reaction on Zypher. Admiral Clith slammed his fist against the console as new reports arrived. Resistance movements are stirring. Species once silent are gathering. All because of this human vessel. He bared his fangs in anger. No more games. Prepare the execution fleet. I will lead it myself. We will erase this Resolute from existence. Across the Empire, fleets mobilized. Thousands of warships began to sweep sectors in coordinated hunts. The Empire would not rest until the human vessel was dust. A battle of wits. Knowing the Empire was coming, Elena prepared her allies. In a hidden cavern carved into the side of a barren moon, leaders of the Resistance gathered. We cannot match their numbers, Commander Thal said grimly. Their fleets will outgun us every time. True, Elena replied. But war is not only about numbers. It is about minds. The Zirith are strong, but they are rigid. They expect battles to follow patterns. We will break those patterns. She laid out a plan. Small strikes, hit-and-run attacks, spreading confusion. The goal was not to destroy the Empire outright, but to show the galaxy that the Zirith could bleed. Skirmishes. The weeks that followed were filled with fire and danger. The Resolute and its new allies launched sudden raids on supply lines, ambushed patrols, and sabotaged command relays. Each time they struck quickly and vanished before the Empire could respond. Zirith fleets chased shadows, wasting energy and growing frustrated. In one battle, the humans tricked an entire squadron into firing upon their own ships by scrambling communication signals. In another, Resistance fighters led enemy patrols into asteroid fields where ambushes waited. Though the battles were small, their effect was enormous. Word spread across the Empire. The unbeatable Zirith were losing ground, not to a rival empire, but to a collection of rebels and a single human warship. Doubt in the Empire on Zypher. The Council grew uneasy. The people whisper, one counselor warned. They say the Zirith can be defeated. Our allies are questioning us. Tribute shipments are late. Fear is spreading, not of us, but of them. Admiral Clith snarled. Fear is a weapon, and we will wield it again. I will crush the human ship myself. When it burns before the galaxy's eyes, all will remember who rules. But in the shadows of Sci-Fi, not all Zirith were loyal. Some young officers, seeing the chaos, began to question the Empire's future. If one ship could shake them this much, perhaps their rule was not eternal. A test of courage back on the Resolute, Captain Elena Voss gathered her crew. They were tired, scarred from battles, but their eyes still burned with determination. "We have lit the fire," she told them, "but now comes the storm. The Zirith will throw everything they have at us. If we fall, the fire dies. If we stand, the galaxy will rise," her crew answered with one voice. "We stand." Closing of Part 4, and so the galaxy shifted. The Zirith Empire, once unquestioned, now found itself fighting shadows and doubts. The humans, small and underestimated, had turned sparks into flames. The Resolute flew at the heart of it all, a single ship carrying the weight of countless hopes. The tide was turning, but greater battles lay ahead. The galaxy stood on the edge of change. For centuries, the Zirith Empire had ruled with iron claws, spreading fear across every world. Their fleet seemed endless, their strength absolute. No one had ever dared to dream of defeating them. But now whispers had grown into roars. One ship had shaken the balance. One human vessel, the USS Resolute, had refused to bow. It had survived battles it should have lost and inspired allies who had once lived in silence. The tide of fear had shifted. The galaxy was ready. The gathering storm, Captain Elena Voss stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the star map. Dozens of resistance fleets now blinked across the display, each one small, fragile, but united. The rebellion was no longer scattered cells, it was an army. "Admiral Clith has mobilized," Commander Hale reported. His voice was steady, though his face was tense. "They are gathering at Sci-Fi Prime itself. Every ship in their core fleet. This is their final move. They want to end us in one blow," Rami added. His hands moved across the console, drawing data. "If we lose here, the galaxy falls back into silence." Elena nodded slowly. "Then we will not lose. This is the moment we have fought for. The Zirith believe strength is everything. They do not understand courage. Today we will teach them." The crew watched her, and though fear lingered in their eyes, something stronger burned within them: resolve. The resistance unites across hidden bases, asteroid belts, and forgotten colonies. The call to arms spread. Ships patched with stolen parts and outdated weapons launched into the void. Fighters painted with symbols of hope joined larger carriers cobbled together from old mining vessels. On one world, the insectoid Valens left their tunnels to fly in war for the first time in generations. On another, the aquatic Rylath converted massive freighters into makeshift cruisers. Even small pirate bands and smugglers joined, sensing a chance to break free. They all rallied under one banner. Not a government, not a kingdom, but a single human ship. The Resolute, the Zirith's pride on Sci-Fi Prime. Admiral Clith prepared his own armada. Towering warships lined the skies above the capital world, their hulls gleaming with the light of countless stars. He stood on the command deck of the flagship Dominion, his scales glimmering under the glow of the systems. His officers saluted in silence, their faces carved with grim determination. "This rebellion ends today," Clith growled. "The galaxy will witness their foolishness burned away. And when I tear that human vessel apart, all will remember who rules these stars." His words carried confidence, but deep inside, a shadow of doubt gnawed at him. No Zirith had ever needed to fight this hard. The Empire had always won effortlessly. But this time, something was different. The final battle begins. The two forces met at the edge of Sci-Fi Prime, space lit with the glow of thousands of ships. The rebel fleet looked small compared to the Empire's armada, but what it lacked in size, it carried in spirit. On the bridge of the Resolute, Elena gave her orders. "Signal the fleet. Today we fight not as humans, not as Valens, not as Rylath. Today we fight as free people of the galaxy. Hold nothing back." The rebel ships roared forward. The Zirith met them with thunder. The first clash was chaos. Blinding beams of energy crossed the void. Explosions painted the darkness with fire. Ships twisted and spun, dodging barrages while others fell in glorious sacrifice. The Resolute cut through the battle like a blade. Its cannons struck precise blows, disabling larger ships rather than destroying them, sowing confusion among the enemy. Resistance fighters swarmed behind it, striking like wolves at the Empire's heels. Courage against power, Admiral. Clith snarled as his fleet's perfect order began to fray. Focus fire on the human ship. Break them! A dozen massive cruisers turned their cannons on the Resolute. The small ship shuddered under the storm, shields flashing as they absorbed the punishment. On the bridge, sparks rained from consoles. Shields at 60%. Rami shouted, evasive pattern Delta. Elena ordered, keep moving. Make them chase us. The Resolute danced through the fire, weaving between ships, slipping past attacks that should have destroyed it. The crew worked as one, every hand steady, every heart fierce. Nearby, resistance ships fought with desperate bravery. A damaged Valon cruiser rammed straight into a Zereth battleship, crippling it and clearing a path for others. Small fighters darted into blind spots, crippling larger vessels with precision strikes. The rebels could not match the Empire in raw power, but they fought with something stronger: unity. The turning point, as the battle raged. Rami spotted a weakness. Captain, their central command relay, look. If we disable it, their fleet coordination will collapse. Elena's eyes narrowed. The relay was deep inside the enemy formation, shielded by the Dominion itself. But if they destroyed it, the Empire's perfect order would fall apart. Hail, Elena said. Plot a course. We're going straight through. The commander's eyes widened. That's suicide. Not if we believe, she replied. We've come this far. Trust me. Without hesitation, the Resolute surged forward, engines burning bright. Rebel ships, realizing the plan, formed a protective screen around it. They blocked enemy fire, threw themselves into the path of danger, and opened a path with their sacrifice. The Resolute shot forward like an arrow, straight at the heart of the Empire. Duel of Wilson the Dominion. Admiral Clith saw the human ship charging and laughed. Fools, they come to their deaths. Ready the supercannon. The massive weapon lit with deadly energy. Its blast could tear the Resolute apart in one strike, but Elena did not falter. Steady, she called. All power to forward shields. The supercannon fired. A blazing torrent of destruction surged toward the Resolute. The ship shook violently as shields strained, alarms blaring. For a moment it seemed the end had come. Then, against all odds, the Resolute endured. The shields flickered but held, just long enough to push through. Cheers erupted on the bridge. Elena's voice cut through the noise. Target the relay! Fire! The Resolute unleashed its full barrage. Missiles streaked, cannons blazed, and the central command relay exploded in a storm of fire. Across the battlefield, the Zereth fleet faltered. Their perfect coordination vanished. Orders scrambled. Ships hesitated. Formation collapsed. The rebels seized the moment. They struck with fury, tearing through the confused Empire lines. The fall of the Dominion Admiral Clith roared with rage. His fleet crumbled around him, yet his eyes burned with pride. If I must fall, I will drag you with me. He turned the Dominion directly toward the Resolute, charging for a final collision. On the human ship, alarm screamed as the massive flagship barreled closer. Captain, Hale shouted. It's too big. We can't outrun it. Elena's face was calm, her voice steady. Then we will outthink it. Helm full power to engines. Aim for the weak flank. The Resolute twisted sharply, narrowly evading the colossal ship's ramming path. As it passed, the crew fired every weapon they had left into the flagship's engines. Explosions ripped through the Dominion. The giant ship lurched, fire spreading across its hull. On its bridge, Admiral Clith stood tall, refusing to bow even as flames consumed him. His last words were a snarl. The Empire will not fall. Then the Dominion exploded, a blinding light marking the end of the Empire's pride. Victory silence fell across the battlefield. The remaining Zereth ships, leaderless and broken, scattered into retreat. The rebel fleet, battered but alive, cheered with one voice. The Resolute drifted among them, scarred and smoking, yet still flying its banner. On the bridge, Elena let out a breath she had been holding for hours. Her crew smiled through exhaustion, their eyes shining with triumph. We did it, Rami whispered. No, Elena corrected softly. We did it, the galaxy did it, together. A new dawn in the weeks that followed, the news spread like wildfire. The Zereth Empire, once thought eternal, had fallen. Worlds long enslaved lit beacons of freedom. Species that had cowered now stood tall. The Resolute was celebrated not as a conqueror, but as a symbol, a reminder that courage could stand against power, that unity could shatter fear. On a quiet evening, Elena looked out from her ship at the stars. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt wide and open again. She smiled. This is just the beginning. Closing of Part 5, the Sirith had dominated galaxies effortlessly. But one human warship had stopped them in their tracks, and in doing so, humanity had changed the fate of the stars forever.